Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Merman Master coming at you guys from the Team Time Riders Yugi Tube channel with another video for you guys today. And in today's video, I am going to be doing the long form deck profile on my Chazz Princeton character deck. Now, for those of you guys who have seen my short form video, this is roughly the same deck profile. However, I wanted the opportunity to go a little bit more in depth with my thought process when it came down to building this deck. As you guys know, I love building character decks, but not the character decks to the strictest sense of the word. I wanted, my plan is always to create, a character deck that is at least somewhat competitive, but that also makes all of the crazy plays that the character runs in the anime consistently, often, and without much spending of resources. And that's exactly what I try to do here. As you guys are well aware, Chazz was the master of combining decks into like a chimera of things. So this deck is an OJAMA Armed Dragon VWXYZ deck, and it utilizes all of the new support cards. Now, I had always wanted to build a Chazz deck ever since before I, saw any of this stuff, because I was like, that would be really, really interesting to build it. However, I never really decided to take up the mantle of it because it just looks so hard to do. Combining several different archetypes that were just like very, very, not complete was the same thing that I kind of did with the Cyrus deck. Between the Ojamas being low attack normal monsters that you needed to swarm the field with, to the Armed Dragon monsters not really being up to snuff in terms of format defining cards, and then finally to the VWXYZ stuff, which was so just, I don't want to use the word bad, but it was that Konami had to completely retrain the VWXYZ stuff into the ABC stuff in order to, make the deck what it should have been way back in the day. With none of these cards having their own summoning, restrictions and stuff like that, not only building a deck around one of those, but then also combining three of the most slow or terrible archetypes in the game was going to be a tough, tough challenge. Luckily, before that happened, the three new Ojama cards were revealed: Ojama Pajama, Ojamatch, and Ojama Simulation, which just basically took everyone who wanted to meme Chazz into existence and gave them just the defining cards that are going to help it out. And so as a dedicated Chazz or character deck builder, I decided that I wanted to run these cards because, first of all, the deck would have been unplayable without them. And secondly, those cards are not unlike cards that Chazz ran in the anime. Ojama Simulation is, of course, based off of Ojama Ride, which was a card that Chazz used to ditch Ojamas from his hand to the graveyard in order to special summon the X through Z cards from his deck. And it's similar cards like his, he had a Union Hanger kind of card that special summoned a bunch of VWXYZs back, and copycat cards to special summon multiple Armed Dragons to the field. So there's a lot of synergy in here. The main focus of the deck is going to be, guys, of course, the Armed Dragons and the VWXYZs as your big power plays, but you cannot forget the importance of the Ojamas. The Ojamas were Chazz's main monsters, and like Chazz, I decided to keep the focus on only the original three Ojamas. Now, a lot of VWXYZ Dragon Cannon players, and even some other players, run copies of Ojama Blue and Ojama Red, like 3 blue and 1 red, to like search off stuff and to do stuff. But I elected out of that option. I had tested extensively this deck and found that just you're not really focused on the Ojamas here. And that's kind of how Chazz is too, where Chazz is ultimately a character who, at first when he finds the Ojamas, even though, Ojama Yellow and the rest of them are his spirit partners, he constantly tells them how useless they are and how terrible they are, and how he never wants to see them in his deck. But lately, as he comes along, he learns how invaluable the support that the Ojamas offer him are. And in Season 4, he actually goes so far as to call Ojama Yellow the ace of his deck. And that philosophy is very much alive in this deck right now, just simply because Ojama Yellow and all the rest of the Ojamas, while not strong on their own, are the facilitators for those spell and trap cards, the two spells and trap that allow Chazz to make plays that he never would with his Armed Dragons and VWXYZs. And so while they aren't directly the power plays of the deck, they are in many senses the aces. So guys, I have gone on for way too long. Time to get into the deck profile, and I'll show you guys what I play. So to first start out, we're going with the Ojamas. The Ojamas, we have 3 copies of Ojama Yellow, 2 copies of Ojama Yellow, 2 copies of Ojama Black, and 2 copies of Ojama Green. And that's going to be it for the Ojamas, simply because of the reason I mentioned. Your focus is not on the Ojamas, but rather utilizing them as a unique pair or several pairs of monsters to the best of your ability to help you get out your Armed Dragon and your VWXYZ plays. And I didn't want to shift the focus in too many different directions, but I feel like, this is the best possible focus that this deck could have had. And this was actually a sentiment shared by one of the guys who top aided a Scotland regional playing Ojama ABC. He elected not to run any of the link spamming combos with Ojama Blue to search out his things, or Ojama Red to special summon a bunch of these guys to the field. Instead, just running 2 yellow, 2 black, 2 green with several Ojama, with Ojama Magic and the Ojama Assimilation to pull ABC Dragon Buster stuff out of his deck. So these are definitely good, and it keeps with Chazz's mentality as running the original 3 Ojamas instead of trying to take people out of the experience by running a Ojama Blue and Ojama Red, which he never ran, or like I was doing before, the Predaplant engine and Fusion Tag. So that is one of the things that he did not do. So now we're going to be moving on to this stuff. It is the VWXYZ stuff. So we're running 3 V Tiger Jet and 2 W Wing Catapult for his VW Tiger Catapult. As you guys know, Kaiba was the man of XYZ, but Chazz was the man who added the VW stuff to the XYZ stuff in order to make it what it truly is. And the reason I decided to run 3 V Tiger Jet and 2 W Wing Catapult was primarily because V Tiger Jet is a little bit stronger. He's the strongest kind of normal monster, and he helps you go for more of your plays. And that's not only to mention that, but the VW Tiger Catapult, which I'm running 2 of in the extra deck, can be special summoned from the graveyard, unlike XYZ Dragon Cannon, who cannot be special summoned from the graveyard. So really, really awesome, and a big shout out to Legendary Collection Kaiba for finally giving us these guys in holo foil. It's absolutely amazing. I love playing these guys. Really, really awesome cards, and boost them up with power, and they'll help you out. For the next cards we're running 1 copy of X, 1 copy of Y, and 1 copy of Z. And as I mentioned, guys, I was running the Predaplant engine and Fusion Tag for the longest time to try and cheat your way into the V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon, but ultimately, I really found that nothing is better than just running the original guys, and nothing speaks Chazz more than having these guys. And 1X, Y, and Z are the perfect ratio of these guys because they don't have any special summon effects of their own, and usually you want to be bringing them out from your deck or from your graveyard with Ojama Assimilation. It's the same with the V and the W. You're not going to really unionize them. More so, you're going to use them to get out your fusions that you can, ramp into bigger dudes like that. But if you equip them, they give X Head Cannon some power, or Y Dragon Head and Z Metal Tank can give extra power to certain other guys. So not a totally out there option, but I just love this. I will mention that these are the most vulnerable part of your entire deck, because you will shut off or get shut off from your ultimate goal, which is the Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon, if any of these guys gets banished, or if XYZ Dragon Cannon gets banished. And your opponent really doesn't know that, but that's just one thing that I'd like to mention, just in terms of if XYZ Dragon Cannon is removed from the field before it has the capability to go into what you need to go into, that's a big issue. But you got to run these guys in here. Really, really awesome. Get them out on the field. Go for your XYZ. Go for the VW. And it's besides, guys, it's a lot more fun summoning this guy out legally instead of cheating him out onto the field. You're never really taken out of the experience, and you feel like you're still fully in the Chazz game. Now, guys, that is a component for the V to Z Dragon Cannon. Now, moving on to the Armed Dragon component. We have 2 copies of Armed Dragon level 5, 2 copies of Armed Dragon level 7, and 1 copy of Armed Dragon level 10. And these are actually Chazz's ratios, believe it or not, guys. Armed Dragon level 5 and Armed Dragon level 7 were both used as 2-ofs in his final duel in Season 4 against Aster. And the Armed Dragons, as I mentioned, are not really, the strongest monsters as well, but getting onto the spells and traps is where that stuff really shines. And so Armed Dragon level 5 is really, really good. I don't have Armed Dragon level 3 in here because, just devoting too much effort to like the mass dragons or some of that other stuff like takes the deck off into directions that it shouldn't be going. But Armed Dragon level 5 is one of the only LV monsters that doesn't have to be special summoned by its lower level counterpart. So you can get it out with a Call of the Haunted, or you can cheat it out using your Ojamas or whatever, and get your Armed Dragon level 5 out onto the field. Its effect is not really that good. You can discard a card from your hand to the graveyard, such as, for instance, V Tiger Jet, and then it can destroy any monster that has an attack less than or equal to the monster that you've discarded, so such as the V Tiger Jet. And it's not really that good because you can't discard spells or traps or anything like that, but it can come in useful occasionally. But when Armed Dragon level 5 destroys a monster by battle, you're allowed to special summon Armed Dragon level 7 by tributing this card. But unfortunately for that, you can only do so at the end phase of the turn in which this happened, which is quite annoying, especially if you just want to get Armed Dragon level 7 right out onto the field. So that's Armed Dragon level 5. And then Armed Dragon level 7, I was running 2 level 5 and 1 level 1 in here. But I elected to bump the number up to 2 level 7s, and I have not looked back since, guys. 2 level 7s is fantastic. Basically, it has the same effect as Armed Dragon level 5, except for that if you discard a monster with that attack, you can destroy all monsters with attack lower instead of just 1. But Armed Dragon level 7 is, he's just in here basically for the Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. You won't really find yourself using that effect too often, but as far as beaters go, like he's a really nice 2800. And finally, you may be asking yourself why I've got a copy of Armed Dragon level 10 in here. One of the most mythically tough monsters to special summon to the field, because you need to successfully get off Armed Dragon level 5, go into Armed Dragon level 7, hope it survives a turn, and then go into Armed Dragon level 10. And the reason that I have level 10 in here, the fact that he's one of Chazz's strongest Armed Dragon and the only LV monster of level 10 in the whole game is simply because, and this may sound crazy to you guys, is because if you get Armed Dragon level 7 out, and there are ways to do it, by tributing Armed Dragon level 10 on him, you can send your Armed Dragon level 7 to the graveyard. And a lot of the effects right now, such as like ABC Dragon Buster, which this deck has a lot of trouble, getting around. ABC Dragon Buster and things like that will banish your Armed Dragon level 7, effectively taking it out of the game and locking you out of your Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon endgame. And what Armed Dragon level 10 does is, at least, in this current format, he'll tribute your Armed Dragon level 7 and send it to the grave where it's pretty much going to be safe. Aside from like a soul release or, Called by the Grave or some other, crap like that, Armed Dragon level 10 basically is kind of a protection insurance for your Armed Dragon level 7. And this card is incredibly easy to summon. I've summoned it several times with, the way that I've built this deck. And it's every time this comes to the field, people are just like amazed. But I'm like, listen, this is just like a tech card. It's not even in here to be the end game. But level 10 has its own effect, and it's the best of all the Armed Dragons. because you can discard any card to pop all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So that includes any kind of card. You know, you can discard your Ojamas, even though they have 0 attack, or you can even discard your spells, such as like Ojamagic and things like that, which I'll get into more when I get to that profile. But I just really wanted to show you guys that Armed Dragon level 10 is incredibly useful. This can also be searched, of course, by Ojamas. So it's super easy. If you have it in your deck, it's like incredibly easy to just pull it to your hand. You don't have to expend any extra effort to do so, or you don't have to count on drawing it like you used to previously. Just search it when you want it and never when you don't. So that's going to be it for the monsters, guys. It is 19 monsters, I believe. A nice lineup of Ojamas, VWXYZs, and the Armed Dragon monsters. Now moving on to the spells and traps, and this is where it gets fun. So first starting out, guys, with our spells and traps, we're going to be running 3 copies of Level Up. Now, you guys remember I told you about the power of the Armed Dragons and, you know, really what they are capable of. And with Level Up, I started with this card at 1, then I bumped it up to 2 because I wasn't seeing it often, and then finally I bumped it up to 3. And I would run, like, you know, 4 of these if I could, just because it's unsearchable, but it's such an important part of your plays. You know, with Armed Dragons just being as powerful as they are, or as, you know, like the abilities that they have, or, you know, not as powerful, you want to, you know, ramp up into this guy as much as you can. So, if you have a monster on the field, or you have Ojamas, if you have one of these, if you have this hand right here, or a way to get to this hand with a normal summon still on the field, you can do some pretty crazy stuff, because you normal summon Armed Dragon level 5, activate Level Up, which will grab you your Armed Dragon level 7 from your deck, and then you just tribute Armed Dragon level 10 from your hand, and bada bing, bada boom. You've got Armed Dragon level 10 on the field. You know, just really, really easy to do. And so, you know, for people who would suggest running any less than 3 Level Up, I'm like, no way, because this card is incredible. So now we're going to move into some of the other cards. And we're going to start off again with 3 copies of Ojamagic. This card is one of your key playmakers and one of the cards that you want to be seeing in your hand very, very often. You never play this card or never activate it, but its effect just states that if it's sent to the graveyard from the field or your hand, you can add 1 of each Ojama, yellow, black, and green, from your deck to your hand. And with all the recycling and different things that go on in this deck, this is really good. But the funny thing is that actually Ojamagic has incredible synergy with the Armed Dragon and the VWXYZ stuff. Because with Ojamagic, starting off with Armed Dragon level 10, as I mentioned, you know, you can discard cards from your hand to the graveyard in order to activate its effect. And they don't necessarily have to be monsters with a certain attack power. So if you've got Armed Dragon level 10 chilling on the field and your opponent's got monsters, you can ditch this card from the from your hand to the graveyard, activate Armed Dragon level 10's effect to pop your opponent's field. And then Ojamagic will trigger in graveyard to search you from your deck to your hand any monster that your 3 Ojamas. So, you know, this is more of a testament to the design of the new cards, that they really, you know, without them, like, this crazy cool synergy between Ojamagic and like Armed Dragon level 10 would never have even been highlighted to the point that I'm talking about it now. It's the same thing with your V Tiger Catapult and your XYZ Dragon Cannon, which also do not have once per turn abilities either. VW Tiger Catapult switches attack and defense mode monsters, and your XYZ Dragon Cannon can destroy any card on the field. You ditch an Ojamagic with either one of these, search your 3 more Ojamas, and you can activate these effects as much as you want until your opponent's field is gone. Like, I've sat on an XYZ Dragon Cannon, popped like 4 back rows and like 2 monsters just by ditching certain things like this, like Ojamagics and a bunch of Ojamas from my hand, and then activated Ojama Assimilation right after that to get them from the graveyard. It's just incredible, the kind of synergy and plays that you have just simply off of Ojamagic. And, you know, Chazz it up, guys. Chazz it up, because that is something else in my opinion. So that's the 3 copies of Ojamagic. And, one last thing I will mention before I get asked about it is, a lot of people would wonder why I play 3 Ojamagic. And this is something that I shared again with the guy who topped the event with Ojama ADCs, in that, you're doing a lot of recycling of your Ojamas. They're never going to really be on the field so often as they're going to be back in your deck and other things like that. And there's no way to recycle your Ojamagic, so your Ojamagics can keep grabbing your Ojamas out of the deck throughout the entire duel. And that makes sure that you have a constant stream of the little guys in order to activate your cards and keep plussing off of their plays. So, that's something he realized, and that's something definitely you guys should realize as well. I recommend 3, but no less than 2. Don't run just one of those Ojamagics, because you will need them. Very, very much so. The next cards that we're running in the deck are going to be 1 copy of, again, the Graceful Charity is a proxy, but it's 1 copy of Ojama Delta Hurricane for the Ojama Delta Hurricane combo that I showed you before, and then 1 copy of Limiter Removal, because your machines get big. And if you combine it with Ojama Pajama, you can double the attack power of your monster on the field, and it won't get destroyed during the end phase. Oh, yeah. Really, really cool. So the reason that I organized the deck like that, with, the Ojama Delta Hurricane, popping all your opponent's monsters so you can go for the OTK with like a limiter removal and some other stuff, is just because I wanted to, go over the 3 new cards together. One last thing I will mention about limiter removal as well is that the card is a very, very strong option for especially like pre-XYZ plays, because you can boost all your little guys up before you go into your big guys, and then you can make a big guy who's not affected by limiter removal. So that's also something that I just feel needs mentioning at this point. And now, moving into the 3 new cards, guys. It has taken a while. If you guys are still with me, thank you so much for continuing to watch. I know, it's just when I get passionate about the character decks, guys, I can't stop talking about them. And I just feel like, this is one deck that I've wanted to build for a while. And these 3 cards are the linchpins of this strategy. They tie all the archetypes together. And here we go. 3 copies of Ojamatch, 3 copies of Ojama Assimilation, and 3 copies of Ojama Pajama. All 3 of these cards are absolutely incredible. I cannot speak enough praises about what they do, and whoever designed these had their finger on the pulse of Chazz duelists everywhere, because just these cards do so much for the deck. They make it a deck. They make the Chazz Princeton meme deck an actual playable deck. And, without further ado, guys, I'm going to get into what they do just so that I can, really tell you just why they are so good. Because each one of these cards leverages your Ojama monsters, spells, and traps in the deck to help you to get out, the Armed Dragon level 10s and the VWXYZ Dragon Catapult Cannons, and even, guys, Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon himself. It's just incredible the kind of synergy that they've managed to create with these cards, and I just cannot thank the designer at Konami who came up with this stuff enough. So guys, without further ado, I'm going to go into some of the effects here. So one thing that I want to mention is, aside from Ojama Pajama, Ojamatch and Ojama Assimilation are not once per turn. So keep that in mind as I continue to show you guys what happens. So starting off, Ojamatch is, as you guys can see, the Armed Dragon counterpart of the card, because you got your Armed Dragon over here and your Ojama over here, and then Ojama Assimilation is the VWXYZ stuff where they're turning him into, I guess a machine or something like that. But each of these cards services a different purpose. So starting off with Ojamatch. So Ojamatch allows you to ditch any Ojama card from your hand or field to the graveyard. That includes any of your monsters or any of your spell or trap cards like Ojamagic or your Ojama Duo. Ditch them to the graveyard to add 1 Ojama and 1 Armed Dragon monster from your deck to your hand. That's right, guys. This can even search Dark Armed. And so you add one Ojama and one Armed Dragon monster from your deck to your hand, whichever one you need at the moment. If you have a level 5 or you need a level 5, that's usually who you're going to be searching with this. So you grab like Ojama Yellow, Armed Dragon level 5, and then this card allows you an extra normal summon of one of those monsters. So the key play is, discard an Ojama card with Ojamas, grab an Ojama and an Armed Dragon level 5, normal summon the Ojama, and then for your normal summon of the turn, tribute that monster, and you instantly have Armed Dragon level 5 on the field. I cannot tell you guys how incredible this card is, just simply because of its ability to get out the previously nigh on untributable Armed Dragon level 5 onto the field. It's just like, it does so much and allows you to aggro out, a monster that, by itself doesn't do much, but, this card like really helps you get it out onto the field. And that is an awesome, awesome thing. So you can, this is like one of your main ways of, getting into your Armed Dragon level 7, and then eventually, if you want, even ramping it up into Armed Dragon level 10 if you're using level up, or if your Armed Dragon's just chilling on the field. And this is not once per turn as well, so if you got 2 Ojamas, you can do it. The other great thing that I want to mention before I move on to the next card is that this is a quick play card, which means that you can activate this during your opponent's turn. If they target a monster you control that you really want in the graveyard, Ojamas can, if your opponent targets your level 7 with VWXYZ, or no, they target your level 7 or your VWXYZ with like an ABC Dragon Bust or something like that, you can flip and trigger Ojamas, grab your Ojamas to the hand, and then tribute it for an Armed Dragon level 5 before your opponent's thing happens, so that they lose the target on the card automatically. So this is super, super awesome as kind of like a way to protect your cards. And you can even use it during your battle phase to put an extra like 2,400 damage on board with your Armed Dragon by, if you attack with something and then you tribute this, and you can go in for an extra 2,400 damage. This card will also grab your Ojamas or your Armed Dragon stuff from the grave, so no need to worry about running out of those resources in deck. So that is Ojamas, and then moving on to Ojama Assimilation. And Ojama Assimilation is where things get spicy with the VWXYZ stuff, because this card basically states that you can banish any Ojama monsters, doesn't matter the name, type, whatever, as long as it's an Ojama monster, you can banish it from your deck, from your hand, field, or graveyard, and then special summon from your hand, deck, or graveyard any monster listed on the fusion monster you revealed to activate the effect. So let's say that you have, just discarded an Ojamagic for Ojamas, and you've searched 3 more Ojamas. If you have, those 3 Ojamas, you can activate Ojama Assimilation, reveal the XYZ Dragon Cannon from your deck, banish all those Ojamas, and then special summon X, Y, and Z. X Head Cannon, Y Dragon Head, and Z Metal Tank straight from your deck without doing anything. And, without even using your normal summon at all. And you can just go directly into XYZ Dragon Cannon just off of that play alone. If you've got 1 Ojama in your hand, you're discarding like an Ojamagic or something like that, and you have Ojamas and 2 Ojama Assimilations, that's an instant V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon play right there. So I cannot talk enough about these cards. The last effect that both of these guys share, and it's one of your most important effects in the whole deck, is that if this card is in the graveyard and you have 3 Ojamas banished, you can banish this card from the grave. You can banish either one of these cards from the grave to target 3 of your banished Ojama monsters and shuffle them back into the deck and then draw a card. You don't even have to run Pot of Acquisitiveness in here in order to make this work. So, fire away, guys. Bombs away. Just light things up with this. Ojamas and Ojama Assimilation all day, guys. Very, very awesome cards. I could talk all day about these cards. So now that the spells are done, that's going to round them out. And moving on to the traps, and what better card to start with than Ojama Pajama. And this card is one of the, I think, like, if these two cards are the power play cards that allow you to get everything out, this card is the one that you want to see first turn all day. Because Ojama Pajama, you know, you want to go first in this deck so you can get your plays out. Ojama Pajama can activate once during either, once per turn. It's a hard once per turn, but can activate during either player's main phase in response to a card that was activated, especially on your opponent's turn. And what it allows you to do is you can add one card that states Ojama in its card name, and that includes, of course, your Oja matches, your Ojama assimilations, even another copy of itself, or your Oja magics and things like that. Grab it to your hand and then discard one card to the graveyard. It doesn't have to be an Ojama. It can be anything you want. You have a random stray V Tiger Jet in your hand, you discard that. You have an Armed Dragon level 7 that shouldn't be in your hand, discard that. Just discard it to the graveyard and, do that effect. And it's just very, very good at just pulling your stuff out of the deck. And the fact that you can activate it on your opponent's turn means that oftentimes you can get 2 searches for the price of 1, which is very, very important, especially when you're ramping up to try and get the materials necessary to go for your Oja match and your Ojama assimilation plays. So you always want to see this card. It's got also 2 other effects, and one of them is that if the card is sent to the graveyard, and that includes, of course, by something like Oja Match, which can send it to the graveyard, you can special summon any of your banished Ojama monsters to the field. You guys may be noticing, like, I don't really use that effect too often. I don't really find too much use for it because I didn't decide to go the Ojama polymerization route or, do anything with the Ojama so much on the field because I thought that would, it really dragged the deck off into directions that it shouldn't have gone, trying to go for like the Ojama King or something like that. And, there's no real reason to run a polymerization or any kind of fusion card in the deck. So that effect doesn't really get used that often. And oftentimes, most of the times you just really want to be using your Oja matches and your Ojama assimilation, banishing them from the graveyard to shuffle back the monsters to your deck to get an extra draw. But that's another effect. And then the last effect that Ojama Pajama has that's really, really good is that when you control an Armed Dragon monster or Light Machine fusion monster, you can banish if the card would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish any Ojama card from your graveyard as well. And once again, that card wording comes in big, big, big because, you banish your Ojama magics, which are useless in the graveyard. And then Ojama Pajama allows you to protect some of these monsters. Just keep them on the field, prevent them from being destroyed so that they can see a next turn. And you can, really start doing your plays on your opponent from there. So Ojama Pajama is another card that I could talk about for a very, very long time, but I'm not going to really because we're going to be moving on to the next card, and that is one copy of Ojama Duo. I've eschewed Ojama Trio in place of Ojama Duo because it accomplishes everything the Trio does except with one less token to your opponent's side of the field, and with links becoming as big a thing as they are, running Ojama Trio is not really the best option right now. Basically, it makes monsters that Ojama tokens that are impervious to be tributed on your opponent's side of the field. But the really, really awesome play with this is that if your opponent just fields like massively big monsters or they're running something like Time Lords or some crazy, shenanigans like that, special summoning these tokens to your opponent's side of the field is great to allow your Armed Dragon level 5 to have a monster to run into so that you can get into Armed Dragon level 7, get that special summon, instead of, having to run like cards that have to boost the attack power of it. You just set Ojama Duo and special summon the tokens so Armed Dragon level 5 can attack into them to fulfill his requirement to turn into Armed Dragon level 7. So really, really awesome for that. And then another thing I'd like to mention as well is that VW Tiger Catapult, this also comes in really, really big handy with that, because with VW Tiger Catapult having the ability to switch those Ojama tokens into attack position you now have a 0 attack monster that you can beat over. And that's like great if you're going up against like burn decks that are running Battle Faders and Swift Scarecrows and something like that to really, really get that damage in on your opponent's 0 attack monsters. The other great thing about this card is once it goes to the graveyard, you're allowed to banish it at any point during the game to special summon any 2 Ojama monsters from your deck to the field. And if you combine that together, using Ojama Pajama and the Ojama Delta Hurricane, you can combine that together with an Ojama to really put the hurt on your opponent. And the way that you do that is that during your opponent's turn, if you want to destroy your opponent's whole field and you're just waiting to do your plays, but you're scared of like whatever they got in the back row, Ojama Pajama on their turn, grab Ojama Duo and discard it to the graveyard, because it can't activate its turn, that effective special summon on the same turn it was discarded there. So you grab that, discard it to the graveyard to set it up for next turn, and then on your turn, you activate an effect to grab Ojama Delta Hurricane. And if you have one other Ojama, banish this, grab the other Ojama that you did not yet have, and then normal summon that Ojama and special summon the other 2, and bada bing, bada boom. You have a Delta Hurricane play on board to just wipe your opponent clean, guys. Really, really, really awesome play. That I cannot speak enough about. I've done that several times, and then limiter removal with an XYZ Dragon Cannon for game. Just really awesome, and something that I think you guys should definitely consider. That's still one of the power plays of the deck, of course, and while it's not necessarily a polymerization, if Ojamas do get a polymerization card, I'll take out a card to run it, just to run one copy, simply because it doesn't require too much extra effort to make room for it, and it would be searchable. But until that day comes, guys, we're just chilling here with this combo. Helps you to get an effortless Delta Hurricane off against your opponent, which will really, really put the hurt on an unexpected individual. So now moving on to the final couple of trap cards in the deck, we have 2 copies of Call of the Haunted. This is a Chazz special, guys. Chazz loves this card, and I think he activated it the most out of any other duelist, even Bones. I think Chazz activated Call of the Haunted way more than Bones did. And Call of the Haunted in place of Monster Reborn is a very, very Chazz play. Like, yeah, definitely run Monster Reborn, but Call of the Haunted can get you back your Armed Dragons, most definitely. So you can go into bigger plays and can reborn back things that you need to, beat down on your opponent or even protect your life points. Really, really good card, and I love having it in here at 2. I finally figured that running 2 Call of the Haunted would be good to sort of finalize Chazz's deck. And then the last card that we're running in here, guys, is 1 copy of Ring of Destruction, a Chazz favorite. He is a lot like Kaiba in many ways, and he did run this along with Ring of Defense, same as Kaiba, to beat the students of North Academy. Very, very awesome card, and just definitely something that you got to run in here. Stealing a little bit of damage to put your opponent into range for a limiter removal boosted XYZ Dragon Cannon is a thing of dreams. That's what dreams are made out of, guys. So that is that. And now we are going to be moving into our extra deck. And I think I'm going to start things out right now by showcasing to you guys what we're running. So we have 1 XYZ Dragon Cannon and 2 VW Tiger Catapults. And I'm not running any of XYZ's smaller counterparts simply because you can't remove yourself from those forms once you're in them, and you have to really commit to making a deck like that. But XYZ Dragon Cannon and VW Tiger Catapult, as I explained before, are incredible cards, just simply because they have good effects, but they've never been as free to summon as they are in this deck. So you have the ability to just go into these guys so easily, and Dragon Cannon's effect is of particular note because neither of these is once per turn, but Dragon Cannon actually lets you destroy cards whereas VW Tiger Catapult lets you switch battle positions. But each one of these has its own place in the deck, and each one of them allows you to ditch like Ojamagics and other Ojamas that you have in your hand that you're not using to go into these plays. So really, really awesome. Really awesome cards. And then the next cards, of course, since we had room and since I had them, 3 copies of the V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon. A Chazz Spectacular in several duels against Jaden, even his duel against Adrian. He ran this card. Big Bad Scary Monster, Machine type monster with 2 amazing effects. Once per turn targeting banish of any card your opponent controls, as well as its ability, the same ability to switch battle positions as VW Tiger Catapult does, and you don't have to ditch a card from your grave to do so. Not only that, but Catapult Cannon is a fusion monster that is protected by the Ojama Pajama, so that's more of a reason to run it than you had before. And finally, guys, the unholy or crazy holy combination between V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon and Armed Dragon Level 7 is the Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. Honestly, when they printed this card and I saw it for the first time, I was like, this is the most Chazz thing ever. Like, if you're going to talk about a Chazz card or a card that is Chazz Princeton, it is this VWXYZ, or it is this Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. Between the Armed Dragons and the Dragon Catapult Cannon, all of those cards is the crystallization of pretty much everything that he loves. The big giant monsters and amalgamations of things. So I felt like it had to be ran in this deck just simply because of, if Chazz knew of the existence of this card, like, he would absolutely be running this, and he'd probably find some way to get it out first turn. This deck has a lot of advantage that it generates, and the ability to just keep cycling your Ojamas and always consistently have hands of like 5 cards helps you to easily amass the resources you need to be able to get this guy out onto the field. Just very, very awesome card, and something that is worthy of the Chazz Princeton name. And before we end the profile, of course, since this is the last card in the extra deck, we have to go over its effect. So its effect, before even seeing its effect, since it's a combination of VWXYZ Dragon Catapult Cannon and Armed Dragon Level 7, I think it's important to note that your Armed Dragon monsters doesn't necessarily have to have been special summoned that particular copy, but only that those monsters had to have been special summoned in the course of the duel, and you can use any other copy of the card to special summon this card. You banish them from the field or from your graveyard. You do not use polymerization to do so, and then you can activate on your opponent's turn an effect that allows you to banish a card from your deck to your banish zone, and then your opponent is forced to banish every single card on their field or in their graveyard. This is a quick effect, so it can activate in response to anything that your opponent does, be it like, summoning a monster, activating a spell or trap, or even attacking. During the end phase, this card also has the ability to activate as well, making it even more versatile for that. It doesn't have any built-in protection of its own, nor does it have the ability to protect itself from being tributed. But I think with how, it's crazy for me to say this, but how free this card is sometimes to summon, and how much advantage that it nets you during your opponent's turn, there's really no reason to be sort of scared of this card. And it's unlike the XYZ Dragon Cannon. This card also can be special summoned from the graveyard. It can also be special summoned, from any way, shape, or form, from anything. So, if you have a Monster Reborn or Call of the Haunted, you can get this card right back as long as it was special summoned properly. And so once the card is in the extra deck, your opponent cannot use any cards with that name in the extra deck. And in addition, you know, they're prevented from using stuff that's already in there as well. So this is absolutely your end game for your play. And, you know, your Armed Dragon level 7s, 10s, and things like that I pointed out before, all of that just helps you ramp up into Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. It is honestly like the reason that I decided to put together this deck was just to go for this guy. And it's so fun trying to ramp up and summon him every single duel. And you know, it's a game that you play not only with yourself but with your opponent. And some decks like Earthbound Immortals have trouble, you know, you're playing against their bad parts. But like this deck is just a game, and it's a very fun game to see if your opponent can take you out, or you can take out your opponent before this big bad boy hits the field. So guys, that is going to wrap up the deck profile. And I know I've talked for a very, very long time on it, but I really love this deck profile. I've spent a very, very long time continuously upgrading and working on it. I brought it to some anime fairs and some events and stuff like that. Played against character duelists of a variety of people, and you know, a lot of people have given me some fantastic feedback on this deck and have loved what's been done here. But you know, if you guys like the video or you guys like the deck, you know, I'm telling you, try it out because you're going to be impressed. Like, it's a very, very fun deck. It does a lot, and it's just very, very good at what it's doing. Those 3 main cards that were new help you utilize your Ojamas, your Armed Dragons, and your VWXYZ stuff in not only a way that combos them together in a workable deck, but also that develops their own skills and highlights their strengths as cards. You know, that's something that I think is just incredible. And in order to see this deck and believe what it can do, you absolutely have to build it. So with that being said, guys, thanks so much for watching the video. I really, really appreciate you, especially if you stayed this long on the video. I know not many people do, but you know, it's something that I definitely appreciate. And you know, I hope that you guys enjoyed the deck profile and can really use it to the best of its ability. There's a lot of fun combos and interactions that you can use with this, and you know, if you do, like, that's really, really awesome. And if you like the video, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe below. If you put a smiley face in the comment section, just tell me that you put one there. I'm gonna see. I might be giving away something free, free card or sorts like that. You can tell me what kind of deck you're building, and I'll toss you a free card. So guys, thanks so much once again for watching. This has been the Mermail Master with the Team Time Riders YouTube channel, and I'm signing out. Catch you guys next time. Peace.